What's this? A letter for me.
Welcome to another episode of Remember the Great Sports through the Mail Thursdays. Today I'm going to share with you autographs of some players that I recently got back. And I have 3 envelopes I'm going to open up and we're going to see who we got. Alright, so this first one is 4 of 4 from former Milwaukee Brewer Dan Plesac on 4 Brewers cards. Dan Plesac was originally drafted by the Cardinals in the second round of, let's see, what year was that? The 1980 draft. However, he did not sign his professional contract with the Cardinals and elected to stay and go to college at North Carolina State University as the Wolfpack. 3 years later, the Milwaukee Brewers made no mistake and they drafted Plesac with their first round pick in 1983. It took Plesac about 3 years to work his way up to the majors, and in 1986 he made the Brewers pitching staff out of the bullpen and went 10-7 with a 2.97 ERA his rookie season. The following year, 87, 88, and 89, he would be a mainstay in the Brewers bullpen with an ERA of 2.61, 2.41, and 2.35, making the All-Star team all 3 of those years. He spent a couple more seasons with Milwaukee, and after the 1992 season, he elected to sign as a free agent with the Chicago Cubs. After the 1992 season and the 93 season in Chicago and the 94 season in Chicago didn't fare as well as it had in Milwaukee for him. His ERA almost doubled in his stay with the Cubs. After his 2 years with the Cubs, during that time he went and signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He spent a couple seasons with the Pirates until they decided to trade him to the Toronto Blue Jays along with Carlos Garcia and Orlando Merced for a whole slew of minor league players that would later become major leaguers. Abraham Nunez, Craig Wilson, Jose Silva, to name a few. Well, he spent 1, 2, 3 seasons with Toronto. Then in 1999, he went to Arizona as he was traded to them for Tony Batista. After the 1999 season, he went back to Toronto and played for the Blue Jays until they traded him again in 2002 for starter Cliff Polite. He re-signed with the Phillies for a season, and at 41 years old, Mr. Plesac retired from the game. Dan Plesac played 18 years total in the major leagues, which is very impressive. After his playing career, I'm not sure what he did for a little while, but he is currently now an analyst on the MLB network. So if you guys subscribe to the MLB network on your cable provider, you definitely will see Mr. Plesac talking on those MLB shows and possibly doing some games. So thank you, Mr. Plesac. I really appreciate it. I also sent those cards care of the MLB network. So if you have some laying around to him, you definitely might want to consider doing that. All right, so this next player is former St. Louis Cardinal Cris Carpenter, and that's Cris with the C-R-I-S, even though that card is incorrectly spelled. Cris Carpenter, and he was a Ranger, Marlin, on 5 of 5. And if you guys notice, I got another Team USA card back, signed in the mail that I needed. So very, very, very happy to get that one back. Also had this extra Louisville Redbirds card laying around, even though they did spell his name wrong. So Cris Carpenter. He was originally drafted by the Toronto Blue Jays, ironically, so was the other Cris Carpenter. However, he chose not to sign. And after not signing with the Blue Jays, he played for the University of Georgia, and the Cardinals made him their first round pick in the 1987 draft, 14th overall. He spent the 1988 season an late 87 season in the minor leagues, but by 1988, Cris Carpenter was in the major leagues. At 23 years old, he had the opportunity to start 8 games for the Cardinals. The following year, in 1989, he did make the Cardinals major league team. However, they chose to put him in the bullpen, and he appeared in 36 games while only starting 5. Well, in 1990, apparently an injury must have caused him to be limited to only 4 games for the Cardinals. And that might be, nope, that's his University of Georgia card. It says on the back, University of Georgia. But in 1990, he was only limited to those 4 games, so he basically lost the entire 1990 season. Well, the next year he came back strong in 1991, and he actually went 10-4 out of the Cardinals bullpen. So he was a staple of the Cardinals bullpen in 1991 and 1992. Actually, his best season was in 1992, where he went 5-4 with a 2.97 ERA. So, unfortunately, this isn't unfortunate, but the Cardinals did not protect him in the expansion draft, and the Florida Marlins selected him with the 37th pick in the draft. So, Cris Carpenter is one of the original Marlins. So I know that I recently viewed a YouTuber's channel down in Miami, so if you're trying to collect your Florida Marlins, there's one of the originals right there. He started the season with the Florida Marlins in 1993. However, mid-season, the Marlins chose to trade him for who would become one of the best closers of the Marlins in their history, for Rob Nin. And if many of you don't know who Rob Nin is, he was a awesome closer for a period of time for the Marlins and the Giants. So he played for the Texas Rangers in 93 and 94. Then he was given the opportunity to sign as a free agent with the Milwaukee Brewers. He spent some time in the minor leagues with the Brewers and only appeared in 8 games for the Brewers in 1996 before he decided to call it a career. A little personal story. My father and I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Carpenter when he was on his way out, unfortunately, would be the way to put it. He was playing in Louisville, I want to say at the time, for the Brewers AAA affiliate. And I went to a game with my Cardinal cards in hand, similar to something like this. And he was down in the bullpen, and me and my dad got seats down in that bullpen area. And we literally got to talk to Cris for like half of the game. You know, and many people, know that you're not supposed to bug players during the game for autographs, that type of thing, which we did not bother him. I mean, we sort of did. But we said, hey, Cris, after the game, do you mind signing some cards for us? And he was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Well, during the game, he actually opened up a little bit to me and my dad, and he started talking about how he loved his career in baseball and that he had the opportunity to play in every major league stadium at the time, which was a dream come true for a kid from Georgia. And I'll never forget being a 15-year-old kid or 14-year-old kid having the opportunity to meet Mr. Carpenter and talk with him. That meant so much to me as a baseball fan. And if there's anybody that's watching this that is a current player in the minor leagues or maybe a former major leaguer that's trying to make the comeback to the majors that's in the minor leagues, you don't believe how much that is awesome for a 12 or 13, 14-year-old kid to get a chance to talk to a major league pitcher. We do grow up to be young, older adults, men and women, and I will never forget the time that I got to meet you, Mr. Carpenter. And if I ever got to meet you again, I would shake your hand and I would share that story with you. Cris is now currently a baseball coach in high school back in his home state of Georgia. If you're available to, go to high school baseball games in Georgia, it might be worth it for you to look him up and see if he's coaching against a team in your area. So thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Really, really appreciate you, signing those cards, and thanks for the memories again. All right, this next one Postmark from Cincinnati, Ohio. And this is 404 from former Boston Red Sox great and Cincinnati, Ohio native, Tim Naehring. And if you recognize that card, that's another set I'm trying to collect, signed. So if you have any of those, definitely give me a holler. But Tim Naehring was a college player. He was drafted not so high, actually. I want to say like the 8th round or something like that. Let's see if I can find this. Yeah, the 8th round out of Miami University of Ohio. Not the Miami Hurricanes, but Miami, Ohio. I can't say I know too many people that played out of there. But the cool thing is he was in the 1988 draft, 8th round pick, and by 1990, at 23 years old, he was in the majors. At only 23 years old. This is probably one of very few of his minor league cards, these two right here. Because he didn't spend a year and a half in the minors, basically. Well, in 1990, he was kind of a backup. He was up and down, from AAA. I guess I should take that back. He was in the minors in 90 and 91. But he was backing up then Hall of Famer Wade Boggs. So pretty tough to crack the lineup with Wade Boggs ahead of you. So he didn't play just third base, but he also played second base. And he never really got a full-time job until about his 5th season in the league. He played a lot of platoon, a lot of, backup, type of roles, because they also had Scott Cooper playing third base for him, so they were platoon left, right. But finally, in 1995, he got his break to play full-time, and he responded with batting .307 with 10 home runs as the full-time third baseman, replacing Wade Boggs. The following year in 96, he had an even better year that he batted .288, a little bit lower, but crushed 17 home runs. Well, going into the 97 season, the job was his. He was ready to rock, so to speak. But unfortunately, an injury caused a setback, and he only appeared in 70 games, only hitting 9 home runs and batting .286. Well, at 1997, at 30 years old, Mr. Naehring had to retire because of an injury. He probably had another 5 years easy if it weren't for that injury to play as the third baseman for the Red Sox. Well, he spent some time in retirement, but he came back and resurfaced as a coach for the Cincinnati Reds, working with minor league player personnel in his hometown of Cincinnati. Unfortunately, his tenure with the Reds didn't last all that long, and he was let go by the Reds. Well, here's where the story gets interesting. And I know there's a lot of Boston Red Sox fans that watch this, and I know there's a lot of New York Yankee fans that watch this. But after Naehring was let go by the Reds, he went to work for the New York Yankees. That's almost sacrilegious that a Red Sox player goes and plays for the Yankees. Or works for the Yankees, not plays. There are people that played for him too, Wade Boggs. Johnny Damon comes to mind. But he joined the Yankees working in scouting, player development. And as of 2015, I believe he is basically an assistant general manager now to Brian Cashman. He is one of Brian Cashman's top advisors in the New York Yankees front office. So, I sent these, I'm a little bit behind, I sent these during the off season, to Mr. Naehring. So I didn't recently get these back. So you can probably send to care of his home during the off season, or you can try the New York Yankees address and he might sign that way as well. So thank you, Mr. Naehring. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter, as well. And thank you, Mr. Plesac. You guys helped establish my childhood love for baseball, and I will continue to love this game and share your great memories of your careers with all the fans of baseball. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and I look forward to your comments below.